Every year, millions read history, thinking the past was safe, distant, and quiet, but records hide deaths so horrific they still shock modern Americans today deeply more than most people imagine. These were not movie scenes, legends, or myths, but real endings suffered by real people and the truth behind. How they happened will absolutely mess with your head today right now. Before this ends, you will hear about punishments built to last days accidents turning normal moments into nightmares and small choices that sealed fates faster than anyone expected anywhere on Earth. No slow build today. These stories hit hard, move fast, and leave scars, so let me show you exactly how this happened step by step without holding anything back at all. For most of history, life was fragile, rules were brutal, and power decided who suffered most, which matters now because comfort makes us forget how violent systems once controlled people everywhere. Across empires, villages, and crowded cities, leaders used fear to stay in charge, and regular people paid the price, often dying in ways meant to warn everyone else watching nearby silently. Many of these deaths were public events like twisted shows where crowds gathered, kids watched, and silence followed screams, which feels unreal compared to modern American life today right now somehow. What makes this worse is that some victims were innocent, some were accused with weak proof, and some just stood in the wrong place at the worst possible moment ever recorded. Sources suggest records were sometimes exaggerated, but enough accounts match that historians agree these deaths happened, even if details blur, which somehow makes everything feel darker than fiction today for us. People did not have rights like today, no cameras, no lawyers, and no second chances, so one mistake could end everything fast or stretch pain over endless hours for many souls. Now here is where things get really interesting, because the worst deaths were not always quick or chaotic, but carefully planned by systems claiming order, justice, or mercy for control purposes. The first shocking example involves execution methods designed to maximize suffering, reportedly lasting days where the body slowly failed while the mind stayed awake and aware the whole painful time through. Imagine standing for hours unable to sit with restraints, cutting skin, muscles, shaking, thirst burning, and crowd staring because the goal was humiliation before death finally arrived in public spaces openly. Compared to modern discomforts like long work shifts or traffic jams, this kind of suffering feels impossible, yet it was once considered normal punishment by authorities across many regions worldwide. Historically, one record claims victims begged to die sooner, but executioners delayed on purpose, showing how power enjoyed control, not speed, not fairness, and definitely not mercy during those dark public rituals. But if you think that is crazy, wait until you hear this, because accidents caused some of the worst deaths, and they happened during totally normal daily routines for ordinary people. According to reports, people drowned in wine grain or mud, trapped because crowds pushed forward, proving danger does not always come from violence but from human behavior itself under pressure suddenly. Picture a packed celebration, music loud, excitement high, then one slip, one shove, and suddenly breathing stops as bodies press together with unstoppable force inside tight spaces. People cannot escape fast. Today we talk about safety rules, exits, and crowd control because lessons were learned the hardest way through lives lost in moments meant for joy during celebrations, festivals worldwide, historically too. But here's the part most history classes skip, because some deaths came from medical mistakes where treatments meant to heal actually caused unbearable pain and slow endings for many patients. Doctors once used methods now considered dangerous like blood draining or toxic mixtures, believing balance mattered more than comfort while patients trusted them completely with hope, fear, and very little choice. Reportedly, some people survived injuries only to die days later from treatment, proving knowledge gaps were deadly, even when intentions were good and care was attempted by trained professionals at times. This connects to us now because trust in systems still matters in history. Shows blind faith can be risky without accountability or learning from past failures when warnings are ignored repeatedly. But wait, because punishment deaths get even darker when politics enter, turning enemies into examples and justice into theater meant to scare entire populations through fear, spectacle, control, obedience, silence alone. In some cases, leaders ordered deaths that symbolized control, choosing slow methods, so messages spread wider, lasting longer than any written law or speech ever could reach people emotionally or mentally. Sources suggest victims were paraded, mocked, and broken publicly, ensuring fear stayed alive long after bodies were gone, shaping behavior through memory alone within families, towns, cultures, nations across many generations. This brings us closer to the core truth, because the worst deaths were rarely about individuals, but about systems protecting power at any human cost, no matter how cruel or public. Before revealing the biggest connection, consider this, because many of these methods disappeared only recently, meaning grandparents lived closer to this reality than we think during their younger adult years often. Industrial progress rights movements and public outrage slowly pushed change, but none of it was automatic, and every improvement followed shocking loss and loud resistance from powerful groups in charge then. So when we hear about brutal historical deaths, it is not distant horror, but a reminder of what unchecked authority can normalize over time if people stop watching, questioning, or resisting. But if you think the past is fully gone, think again, because echoes still exist where suffering is hidden, delayed, or justified quietly today behind walls, paperwork, systems, routines, policies, decisions. According to experts, systems evolve, but human psychology stays similar, which is why studying these deaths matters beyond shock value alone for understanding power, fear, obedience, silence, control patterns today. Clearly, we start to see patterns like secrecy, increasing cruelty and visibility, sometimes reducing it because witnesses create pressure that silence never will. When people watch, record, remember, speak out together publicly. This pattern explains why public executions faded, replaced by controlled systems, yet suffering did not vanish, it just moved out of sight behind doors, walls, policies, procedures, paperwork, uniforms, authority structures. Here is the chilling part, because the worst deaths recorded in history were not accidents of ignorance alone, but choices repeated until someone finally said enough out loud and refused silence. That moment usually came after outrage stories spreading and people realizing they could be next, proving fear can control, but also motivate change when shared widely across communities, nations, borders together. We are now ready for the next layer, because the most disturbing deaths combine punishment, accident, and belief into one unstoppable chain driven by power, fear, trust, tradition, obedience, silence, repetition. Some victims reportedly accepted their fate, believing suffering proved loyalty, faith, or honor, which shows how ideas can be as deadly as weapons when questioned, rarely challenged openly, publicly, or early. When belief removes doubt, systems gain power, and questioning stops allowing cruelty to grow quietly under the mask of tradition, accepted routines. Ceremonies, laws, customs, habits, teaching, stories, rituals, authority, norms. This is why understanding these deaths matters to modern viewers, because comfort can fade and history shows how fast norms can slide backward when fear returns, power concentrates, oversight weakens suddenly. Before we go further, remember this feeling, because the final connection will tie every story together in a way you will not forget long after this video ends. Today for you, what began as shocking deaths becomes a warning, showing how ordinary people, normal days, and trusted systems can end lives when power goes unchecked, without limits, transparency, accountability, empathy, oversight, resistance. And we are only halfway through, because the most shocking discovery of all is still coming, and it changes how you see history entirely from this moment forward, permanently today onward. Take a breath here, because what comes next connects everything: punishment, accidents, belief, power, and silence into one final truth that reframes the past, present, future, behavior, systems, choices, actions, outcomes. This truth is not about fear alone, but responsibility, because knowing history gives us tools to recognize danger before it grows again inside lost systems, cultures, communities, habits, routines, beliefs, minds. And that brings us to the edge of the most important realization, which will completely change how these worst deaths should be remembered by everyone watching. Listening, learning, teaching, sharing stories. Because remembering is not passive, it is active protection, and forgetting is what allows systems like these to quietly return again through new names, new rules, new faces, new excuses someday. Now we will uncover how memory outlasted power and why some deaths changed the world in ways nobody expected at first glance, historically, culturally, morally, emotionally, forever. When we left off, the pattern was clear, because the worst deaths were never random. They followed rules, beliefs, and systems people trusted until it was already too late. But here's where another layer appears because accidents often became excuses allowing leaders to avoid blame, while people still died horribly. Fires, collapses, and overcrowded events were labeled unfortunate, yet poor planning, greed, and ignored warnings often sat quietly behind the scenes. Sources suggest warnings were ignored, repairs delayed, and safety dismissed until disaster struck and lives were lost beyond recovery. This pattern repeats today in smaller ways, reminding us progress is not permanent. It requires pressure, memory, and constant challenge. Now let us talk about betrayal, because some of the worst deaths happened after promises of mercy, protection, or fair trials. Victims reportedly confessed under pressure, expecting lighter punishment only to face harsher endings. Once information was extracted completely, trust became a weapon, and once broken publicly, it taught everyone watching to never rely on fairness alone. That lesson shaped societies, making people cautious, quiet, and willing to accept injustice just to survive another day. This is why fear-based systems last so long, because they do not just punish bodies, they reshape minds permanently. But wait, because there is another uncomfortable truth, and it involves how long these methods survived without challenge. Some execution styles lasted centuries, passed down like traditions, even as knowledge improved and alternatives existed. Change did not come from rulers suddenly caring, but from pressure, rebellion, exposure, and people refusing to look away. History shows every major improvement followed pain, reaching a level people could no longer ignore. That brings us to the biggest realization, because the worst deaths were not failures of humanity, they were choices humanity kept making. Once we accept that history stops being entertainment and becomes a mirror showing how easy it is to repeat patterns. Order, safety, faith, and control were the goals, but without limits they turned deadly faster than anyone expected. That is why records rarely show outrage at first, only later regret once damage was irreversible. So what does all this mean for us today? It means comfort can hide. Danger and progress can slide backward if people stop paying attention. It means questioning systems is not rebellion. It is survival learned through centuries of suffering. Short-term, ignoring history risks repeating mistakes in quieter, more acceptable forms. Long-term, remembering these deaths protects future generations from accepting cruelty as normal again. The biggest takeaway is not fear, but awareness, because awareness breaks cycles faster than punishment ever did. Before we wrap up, there is one final thing you need to know, and it ties everything together. Many victims believed their deaths would be forgotten, yet their stories outlived the systems that killed them. Memory became justice when law failed, proving stories are stronger than fear over time. That is why learning about the worst deaths ever recorded matters, because remembering gives meaning to lives lost. If this opened your eyes, remember, history is not past pain, it is a warning written in human experience. The next story will dive deeper into one event that changed everything, and you will not want to miss it. So pause, think, and ask yourself which systems today deserve closer attention. Like the video if you learned something new. Subscribe for more real history told straight. Share this with someone who thinks the past does not matter. Comment below which part shocked you most, because your voice keeps these stories alive. Like, subscribe, and share.